Welcome to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership, where you'll hear insights and useful strategies, as well as lessons learned from other nonprofit leaders and valuable tips from a variety of experts. Here to help you with the challenges and opportunities you face day after day is your host and nonprofit leadership expert, Sarah Olivieri.
Hello, nonprofit leaders, and welcome to your go-to place for information and inspiration to help you be even more effective. I'm your host, Sarah Olivieri, and you're listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. My guest for this episode is Joanne Toller, who has been a pioneering force in fundraising and nonprofit marketing since 1994. With 3 decades of experience, she has transformed countless organizations while empowering nonprofit professionals to reach new heights in their career. As a dedicated coach and trainer, Joanne passionately believes that mastering advanced digital skills is crucial for success in today's nonprofit sector. If you're ready to elevate your professional development, Joanne invites you to contact her for a consultation and discover how her tailored programs can help you achieve your goals. Welcome, Joanne. Before we dive into talking about your areas of expertise, would you share with our audience just a fun fact about yourself?
Yes, I am currently just coming off of an evacuation alert because for the forest fires in Alberta. We are in our travel trailer, but it's been a hot, dry
Well,
summer.
I'm glad you have
Looking
a
forward to
good
going.
place to evacuate to. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun otherwise. Is everything okay back at your house?
Yeah, no, everything's under control, and people might have heard about the firefighters or the forest fires in Jasper, and
Well, good. As good as it can be, it sounds like. So let's talk about, you must have such a wide area of expertise, but today I'd love to hone in on year-end campaign planning. And let's start with the things that people shouldn't do. What would you say are the most common pitfalls that happen for people when they're thinking about or doing their year-end campaigns?
I would say starting too late.
Oh, yeah.
This is time of year. Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that for everybody listening. Ding, ding, ding. Starting too late. So when should they start?
I would be starting now. I would. I have an annual campaign that I was working on last year for year end, and we started in August. I always recommend starting because August, the things tend to slow down, and really to be successful, you want to have that time and that space to be creative, think everything through, talk to the team, do your research, and scrambling at the very last minute is not the time.
Yeah, so that's like a 6-month or maybe a little less runway is what you're saying.
Yeah. And I was doing some Googling for some stats on year-end fundraising, and only 7.7% seem to do their planning early. Everybody else is scrambling at year end, and with so much of our revenue coming in at that year end, it's worth taking that time to plan it and do it properly.
Yeah, you only get year end once a year, and you know when it's coming. It doesn't change on you every year. And I just have to say, as I've dinged that, like with emphasis for everybody listening, I've seen it again. And I don't work with fundraising specifically with clients, but what I see happening to executive directors who I work with is year-end fundraising gets shoved to the end at the last minute, and then all their other plans for the upcoming year get messed up as a result because they didn't give them the advanced attention that they should have. And it has this chain reaction that can cause not just a lower results in an annual campaign, but it can mess up projects for the rest of the upcoming year. So I love that. That is the first thing you mentioned. What are some of the other common pitfalls that you see folks falling into?
I think not taking advantage of all of the different opportunities that year-end giving provides. You have opportunities for individual gifts, corporate gifts, community organizations, and online, and even your direct mail. It's so bringing that all together and really working up a highly strategized plan for how you're going to tap into each of those channels.
Yeah. So, and those aren't just channels, those are like different audiences potentially as well, right? The folks who are responding to your direct mail, if you're doing direct mail, might be different than the folks who are responding to you on social, right? I mean, they could be the same too, but I can imagine you might have different kinds of audiences and different messages. For those organizations, right? Because you've just mentioned a lot of different channels, a lot of different ways of outreaching people. How can an organization or a leader kind of assess if they have the right number of channels for their size, right? So if they're really small, should they have all those things? Like where should they prioritize their time and energy when it comes to year-end campaigns?
It really depends on the data. Going in and looking at your current donor base, looking at your mission, and looking at those people closest aligned with your organization. And I mean, I've worked with organizations where they were looking to expand their individual gifts. They were doing very well in the corporate sector. And so that was the primary focus, and really drilling down on who are their potential donors as humans so that we can speak directly to them. I worked with another organization where it was corporations. They really wanted to tap into corporations. So we worked up a plan around incorporating gift in kind opportunities in the giving season so that we could take that low barrier of entry, because corporations want that team building around that time of year. So how can we get their teams together to support and then build those relationships so that actually it'll be this year we go in for the harder ask. Yeah. They can support financially. It's really on a case-by-case basis.
Other pitfalls that you see people making?
Not taking advantage of all the different digital channels. So, for example, having your campaign on your website, but having it search engine optimized, because people are searching for places to give in the holiday season, places to volunteer, things to do around the holiday season. So making sure that you're visible there, and on social media. I mean, I could do a whole segment on social media. But yeah, not taking advantage of all of the opportunities that are out
well,
there.
let's go deep briefly for a moment on social media. What are specifically the pitfalls you see people doing, when it comes to social media and year-end campaigns?
Posting and ghosting would be the big one, where they're just throwing out, there's no real strategy around it. And if you're posting and ghosting on social media, then you're not building connections with people, and you're not building connections in the eyes of the algorithm. So, if you throw out a post, you look at your reach, you have 1,000 followers, you reach, less than 100 people. We need to get those numbers up prior to year end so that and build those relationships and provide that value. So then when we make the call, that people, for one, we have the visibility because the algorithm knows us, trusts us, and knows that our viewers want to see more of us. But then you have that community ready to step up.
Yeah. I love it. So let's shift gears for a moment and talk about, we talked about different channels, different types of donors. We've got boomers, we've got millennials, we've even got, the Gen Z, who are adults now, some of them. How do you've been doing this a long time. How do you think about tailoring messages to those different groups?
I love generational fundraising. I do. So I generally, when I'm doing my year-end campaign planning, I will start with, we've got our theme, we've got our key messages, we've got our imagery that we're using. And then I cross-reference all of that with our different user groups. But I will tailor those messages specifically to my target audience. So if I'm dealing with a millennial, I want softer, more fun kind of language. I want to make sure that I have Google Pay and Apple Pay. I'm going to use QR codes. I'm going to do more digital outreach, maybe set up some peer-to-peer options. Whereas let's say that I'm dealing with an older demographic, then I want to really focus on my direct mail appeals, on any kind of letters or even emails if I'm working with Gen Z. So really looking at who my audience is and tailoring my messages towards them. So I'll take those key messages that I develop for my campaign, but I'm really going to flesh those out depending on who I'm speaking to.
I love that. I think one of the things that I see people forgetting when they think about generational messaging is that while each generation has like their skill sets that they're better at or not, they change their age, right? So, because I remember for a while, people were saying, like, this was a while ago now, oh, millennials, right, don't really give. I'm like, that's because they're all still in college, right? Like, they don't have a lot of money yet, but they will become adults and they'll retain some of those habits and characteristics. But their ability to give or their ways in which they're willing to give or capable of giving might change simply because of their age. So I'm wondering, like, how do you kind of each year or every few years kind of reassess, like, what tools do you like to use to figure out what is that generation, what is going to be appealing to them?
Well, that's where when we do our campaign planning, really looking on a case by case basis. So if the majority of your donors are younger, then maybe theming your campaign or setting your campaign up more as a mini campaign where you're asking for smaller donations and how that's going to make a bigger impact and those peer-to-peer fundraising options. Because they don't, but you are building donors for life when you tap into that next generation.
Do you ever, when you're reaching a younger audience, think about including families or having them kind of raise money among their families who might, probably include parents and then another generation?
Yeah, that peer-to-peer option. The younger generation really do want the social media post to say, look what I'm doing. So I like to provide that. So if I was doing a year-end campaign that was targeted towards younger donors, then I would have a full resource center. So I'd make sure that my social share is set up from when they donate so that they can share it on their social media. I would have sample posts, emails, so that they can go out and solicit on our behalf. I mean, many of the donation platforms that are out there nowadays have a peer-to-peer option. So we can make it very easy for them. Just go here, set up your campaign. Here's everything that you need to go and fundraise within your community.
And those younger donors, they know the power of influencers and they know how to do that stuff if you give them a few tools, right? You probably don't even have to give them a lot of instruction. They're like, just give me the basics. I know how to, talk to my community, my people on social. So let's think about now the other end, the millennials and the boomers who are now, we still have a few older than boomers. My mother's a silent generation, which they used to call war babies. What are some of the things that you think are working to message for them these days?
From all of what I've heard out there in the sector and the research, it's still direct mail. Seems to be a great way to reach them. Although I've seen a lot of direct mail lately, in not the old traditional direct mail where you had your reply device and your buck slip and you're pulling these lists, and more of a direct reach out to them, where I've done a campaign where I didn't put reply envelopes, self-addressed reply envelopes. We just had a tear off sheet and they would have to mail in. And it was very successful because of the messaging that we used. We used a lot of stories and we formatted it so that it was nice, big, bold print in a good font that is easily accessible. So just really keeping them in mind as we wrote it.
I love that. And they're still such a powerful generation for giving. Really important not to miss them. Go ahead.
But more and more they're getting on the email.
Yeah, they are savvy. Just thinking of my own parents who are, one is just a little old to be a boomer, but my dad's definitely a boomer, and they are savvy, but they're also having to be really aware of scams because there are a lot of scams targeted at that age group. So actually, you know, email is good with very simple links. I always tell them, like, if somebody emails you a link, just Google, and you're interested, just Google it and then do the link from the Google. Don't click on a link from the email. But otherwise, one thing that's really changed, I see, is they used to really trust the phone, and now they don't, because there's so many scams coming through the phone that it's changed their relationship with phone calls.
Yeah. And door-to-door campaigns used to be huge back in the day, and they're just not trustworthy anymore.
It's so interesting. All right. So let's shift gears. Looking beyond financial contributions, how can nonprofits bring in supporters, engage supporters in other meaningful ways? And I think that's just really important to remember. If a relationship is always you asking them money, that's not going to feel like a good relationship. So let's, give people some ideas. How do we round out this experience for our donors, our supporters?
Well, in terms of providing additional ways for them to get involved, especially nowadays, these are tough financial times. So I always like to have options for gift in kind. Gift in kind is a great way to begin a relationship. We should probably talk about stewardship and nurturing and reporting back and all of that kind of stuff to build a relationship. But I like gift in kind to help bring new people in the door. I also like giving gifts instead of gifts. So donations as a gift. That's one of my favorite. My dad is a perfect example. What do I get my dad? He has everything. So I quite often, so he imports wine, and I will always get him a donation to an addiction recovery center.
Okay, love it.
Yeah. So and the younger people like that as well. They want to be able to give a donation as a gift.
Okay, so I love that strategy, but as I would warn my own clients, so I'm going to give the warning and then have you give the solution, is so if you give your gift, your dad a gift to an addiction recovery organization, essentially you, as the donor, you're kind of like doing it for your dad, doing it for yourself. You might not yet be, or maybe a better example is like if somebody gives, like they gave a birthday gift, right? So like it was my birthday and I asked everybody to give to my favorite charity for my birthday. Everybody who gave probably just gave because they support me, not because they're necessarily in love with that charity yet. So if you're that charity, if you're helping that charity, how do you advise them to take that person who gave because they were celebrating Sarah's birthday and now bring them along so that they hopefully stay as a donor and fall in love with that charity, not just in love with Sarah?
Yeah. Stories. So, going back to the Christmas gift idea, so I've made a donation to an addiction treatment center for my dad for Christmas. I want a story. Give me a story that I can then give to my dad about the impact of that donation. So then that's spreading awareness to him, and then maybe he will support. So many websites have platforms where you can donate as a tribute to, and then they'll ask for the person's email address, or there's ways to get them within the database. And then I always like to do a thank you call, no matter how small the donation is. I want to call. So if I was running this campaign and you made a donation in tribute of someone as a gift, then when I call you and thank you, then I would be saying, okay, here's your story that you can pass along, and getting a little bit more information, and then just that you can try and pass that along.
I love that. And I think that, pass along, now you got me thinking, like, how can we make it pass alongable? So like, if I'm giving gifts to, a boomer, send me like a card or something with the story and a picture that I can like physically hand over, next time I visit. That's like a really strong pass along for that generation. For me, texts maybe that can be forwarded, emails that can be forwarded. And it gets me thinking, I would just kind of want to dive into this, like what makes so my question for you is, what level of communication and the way you deliver that story would make it more or less pass alongable? Like if it was a dear Sarah versus here's the share the love of the impact you made. Like how do you kind of frame that to encourage people to pass it along as opposed to just keep it to themselves?
I find it's in the story, because I've tried the thank you with the story in it, but I've found that by creating the thank you letter that goes with it, thank you for making a donation in support of, here's a story you can pass along, and even just doing a PDF with a nice picture and a great story, then they can put that in an envelope. And
so you kind of separated the two in a way, it sounds like, so that the piece that's designed to be passed along isn't integrated in the letter.
It's a standalone. Yeah. I want to thank the person for what they're doing, and then do that standalone for that person to pass along.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back for this exciting conversation with Joanne. The Inspired Nonprofit Leadership Podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders. I want to help you unleash your full potential to advance the missions that I know you care about so deeply. I've been an executive director, a board member, a secret toilet fixer, and now I'm a consultant and coach. I know your challenges firsthand, and I want to bring you information, inspiration, encouragement, and support so that you can have the greatest impact possible. To help you do that, my gift for you today is a newsletter that you can receive weekly tips for nonprofit leaders just like you. They're highly actionable and delivered in bite-sized chunks because I know you're busy, and you can sign up for that at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. All right, let's get back to my conversation with Joanne. Let's talk a bit about the digital landscape. I mean, you've got 3 decades of experience. How have things evolved over the years, and what do you see working now for nonprofits?
Well, I remember when I first started, nonprofits say, we don't need a website. That's just a fad.
Not true.
Social media came along and we don't need that. Now it's AI. So here's an example of how AI has really helped. So I had a client, we were working on their year-end campaign, and we were both stumped for a theme. What are we going to do? Like, creativity just wasn't there. And we popped over to ChatGPT and put in, this is our mission. We're looking for a creative theme, and it came up with the perfect theme. And then even taking donor profiles. So obviously we scrub it of any personal information, but taking some key data about our donors in the different segments and asking it to help tailor some messaging around that. And just the whole AI universe is completely changing things, right from not just the copy, but the graphics, the planning, to use some of the different programs to set deadlines, assign tasks, track progress. Yeah, AI is definitely a game changer.
So I have to, we started with questions about pitfalls. What are some of the oopsies or pitfalls at this point that you're seeing that nonprofits should watch out for with AI? And then maybe I'll ask the flip side of that is like, how do you use it well?
Not scrubbing the data when we're plunking information in. That's a big one. That is huge. I mean, things like ChatGPT aren't designed to be secure. So we definitely have to be careful with that. And I think too that over relying on it, we've got to humanize it. We've got to fact check. We can't just ask, ChatGPT or Gemini to create our fundraising materials. We really need to feed it the right information and use it as a tool. So, for example, one of my favorite prompts is make this more emotionally charged, or make this because I lack that in my writing sometimes. So it'll help me, but I'm going to read it, critique it, put it on our own voice. I'm not going to become over reliant on the technology. Yeah. It's easy to spot AI written content. It really
is.
is.
I like to use AI, and I have kept I keep a list of words that it pops out, and then I add it to a list that I tell it not to use. So one of my favorite terms that someone who specializes in AI uses is you have to season your AI, meaning you have to keep giving it information about yourself, about your style, what to say, what not to say. So, and I just had a new one today. It's always trying to tell people to discover stuff. And I've got to remember to go in and remind it, don't ever say discover, because the way ChatGPT uses discover is just, no, it's just overkill. It's very, AI-ish, and it's not very me. I never say discover your potential, or whatever it is. I'm much more plain spoken. So I think that's a really, really good point. And people need to be careful about it. Remember that it's a tool, and not an end result. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think it's going to do to fundraising? What should people be watching out for?
Well, I'm hoping that AI generated video comes a little bit further along, because I feel like video is a powerful way to fundraise. Very powerful. And it's also very expensive for nonprofits to do professionally generated videos. But it's coming, so that we can shoot something off of on our phone. We can, have AI help us to edit it and do the overlays, do the B-roll, do everything that we need to be able to do it ourselves in-house and come up with a good production value video.
Yeah.
That's where I'm hoping it goes.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I've been doing a bit of that. I do it with this podcast, as you will see, and those who have been aware of the promotions for this podcast on social media, you can certainly follow me and see them. But I have greatly sped up my ability to generate clips from podcast episodes using Descript, which used to make it kind of easy, but now there is AI in it, and I say, find me clips. And I have some custom instructions that make it do a better job. And this just came like a month or two ago. I give it the template, and I use the same template every time. It creates, once I've edited, it creates the clip. It applies the template. It sets it up as a separate thing. It does all these things that are not hard, but they took a little learning to do, and they take a few moments to do. And now in one click, it's all done. The overlays are applied, the fade in and outs are done. And I just tweak, kind of, whether or not I like the clip. And again, right, it's not really generating new stuff because it's stuff that we actually said. So I'm not using it. I don't have to fact check it because it's still just my real video. But filling in bits and pieces there is definitely coming. So I think that's coming really, really soon. And there are tools that are starting to generate video, but AI editing video, I think you're absolutely right. And that's going to make storytelling so much more accessible. You could already just, film people telling stories around your nonprofit in your phone, dump them into Descript. I'm sure there are other tools that do this too, and tell it to, make a highlights reel, with a button. There's a button that says make a highlights reel, and it'll do it. It'll format it, make it pretty, find all the clips and bits and stick it together for you. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Well, And look what Canva did for graphic design. So if you're working on your year-end campaign, you have everything right there to make it beautiful. And Canva has a program for nonprofits where you can get the pro version for free if you apply. There's even Canva that you can do. So I just did a YouTube video on this. I'm super excited. It's not out yet, but how we can use Canva and their present and record feature to do video requests for support. So rather than sending out an old-fashioned paper copy, you send out a link to the video that where you're taking them through the proposal and you're talking about it, and then you can weave in clips from some of your, from some of the people that you support and some stories, and it's just so much more impactful to do video cases than these.
You just reminded me of a for-profit company that I'm sure there's multiple now who do AI generated custom videos. So like I'd make a template video, saying like, hey, Joanne, and I might hold up, like a piece of paper, and I would say like, hey, Joanne, it would say like Joanne on the paper. And, or I'm hoping that you'll consider contributing to our year-end campaign this year. It's going to help, blah, 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 whatever the message is. You record that once, and then AI automatically changes the name to Sarah, or like whoever it is, and automatically writes the name on the thing that they're holding up in a handwritten, style. So yeah, that customization is exciting, and it really stands out. When somebody says your name, you pay attention when they say it, out of their mouth in video, and you're like, oh man, they said that. But we can do that at scale now because of AI, and Canva is going to make that so much easier. Even the little things, in Canva, I just discovered I was editing something with somebody's photo that they had sent me, and it was just a little low res. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to email them, see if I can get a higher res photo. And then I was like, wait a second. Canva has this feature now with a click of a button. It just took the same photo and made it high res. It was actually a photo for one of these podcast episodes. Bonus points if you think you know what it is. Send me an email and I'll tell you if you're right. But I think like it is, you can't tell. And it like literally probably saved me 20 minutes turned into 2 seconds. All right. Before we close out, we must talk about analytics and data because, and especially with this AI conversation, right? Our ability to pump stuff out has increased tremendously, but we better make sure we're pumping out good stuff. And, analytics is probably, I don't know. I think it's like the what's going to soothe your AI soul, maybe. I don't know. Tell me what you're thinking about analytics, and especially around as we produce more content with AI.
Yeah, obviously your return on investment, but I like to track. So with a year-end campaign, let's say I do direct mail, I want those numbers. How many pieces did I send out? What was my response rate? What's my average gift per, so that I can really step back and make decisions, those data-driven decisions around what's working and what's not working. And social media is another really good example. When you put out your requests on social media for year end and you get 0 donations, well, it'll allow you to really look at that and say, is that the campaign? Is that, what's like, maybe we'll go deeper into this. Is it your reach that's the problem? Maybe not the campaign, right? So that you can make those tweaks and adjustments where you need to make them, as opposed to just guessing.
Right? So a burning question I have for you is, do you ever use ads as a means of just getting more data sooner?
Yes, I have. Actually, I do, because it will allow me to look at the campaign and what is my impressions and then my click rate. And then once they're clicking through, what is that conversion rate? So then I can see where the bottleneck is. Is it in my actual campaign? Or is it in my actual landing page? Like where's the bottleneck?
I love that. I haven't heard of a lot of nonprofits doing this, although I'm sure they do, because that's not my my main thing. But for myself, I will run ads to a totally cold audience who doesn't know me to figure out like which landing page, which headline is resonating with people who don't know me or trust me or anything. And then I can get some nice clean data, and I haven't muddled my messaging to my current audience who know me and trust me. And I don't want to like, be sending a bajillion variations to them, and it gives me, kind of cleaner data too. But I want to get a bunch of eyeballs right away because I don't necessarily want to wait, weeks. I want data in days sometimes. And so I found that just using ads to just refine messages and A/B test things has been really helpful.
It has. And Facebook ads are a very cheap way to do that. Plus, if you've got your Pixel installed and you've nailed it, now you can do a retargeting campaign and they're not so cold
Now, I know
anymore.
a lot of people don't know what retargeting is. So will you just let them know quickly, what is a retargeting campaign?
So that is where you exactly, like this says, so you are retargeting with your ads people who have already clicked through to your website. So they've gone over to your website or they've performed a certain action on your website that you wanted to. So now you're going to retarget.
Such a powerful concept. I actually love a strategy of promoting your own content that isn't even an ask. Like, let's just say you have a nice awareness video or a checklist. Maybe you're a mental health organization and you have a, 3 signs of depression checklist or post that's even on the social media platform. Like, let's say it's on Facebook. You can run very cheap ads to your own Facebook content with no call to action, and use that to build a Facebook audience that now knows you a bit. And then you can run retargeting to everybody who engaged with that post, or you can have a whole bunch of posts that you're promoting, and you can build this engaged list that when you run retargeting ads, often they're cheaper as well. So you can kind of plan ahead and be building an audience. It's almost like having a list on Facebook. You don't have their contact information, but Facebook knows who they are, and you can reach them cheaply and en masse. I love that.
I have a whole donate strategy, Facebook donation ad strategy around that, where you're hitting your targets, like you're very targeted about it, but your value ask.
Love it. Right? All right. Any final tips for our audience, and how should people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
My final piece of advice would be do it now. Do it now. Just, begin your planning process now. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, our website is probably the best option, causespecialists.ca. And they can book a consultation or book a free coaching call. I'm always happy to talk to nonprofits.
Wonderful. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you, Joanne. And thank you out there for listening, but also for all that you do to make our communities better. Take care of yourself. Take time for self-care. Stop trying to cram big projects into the last minute. Get that, timeline laid out for your organization. And be sure to subscribe and listen to the next episode of Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Until then, all the best.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.